Hey folks, Dude here. Well, it's going to be more of a tutorial thing I was going to do, but when you start getting into the nuts and bolts of it, it's kind of a pain in the butt. There's tutorial videos if you look around on YouTube. It's not rocket science here, but literally what I had to do is change out this little hateful booger right here, and what this little booger is right here this is the door actuator for the driver's door on my 2005 Honda CRV. So basically what happens is, well, I did a podcast yesterday around the cabin. I was telling everybody about this thing, how it all works and everything. But you notice there's two plugs on this thing. There's one plug that is the actuator master signal that basically makes this thing, lock and unlock the doors. The only problem is there's another plug here. That's for the other three doors and then for the hatch. So what happens is if this doesn't work, they don't know to lock or unlock. So when you hit the little remote key sender and you're telling it to lock or unlock your car doors, it won't do it. So basically the case in point is I went to the dealership, and one of these guys is, dealership prices, to be charitable, is, somewhat on the order of bloody damn ridiculous, okay? They wanted like $64 for this thing. That's OC, by the way. It's hard to do the angles. OC, by the way, right there. Okay. So anyway, the angles on this thing are such that you go to the dealership and you basically pony up $64 and you get this part. Or you can go aftermarket on eBay. They're like $10 for a chaptastic Chinese piece of dirt that may not work, or simply just goes after 10 times of using it. And you really want to take that chance, because it's about an hour labor for me anyway, and I do it correctly, okay? I mean, I literally take the door apart correctly. I've worked body shops, I've worked cars for a long time, and I had to work on stuff. And there's a certain process you got to know for the Japanese cars. The Japanese cars have a certain way of working, and once you've worked on one of them, they're all pretty much about the same, okay? In Japanese cars are really not rocket science. There's pretty much some actuator rods going to a subassembly inside the car door, and then this pancakes inside the car door. If you're looking from the latch side, when you open up the door, the latch assembly, that's the latch that you see inside the sheet metal, and then this pancakes onto that, and this little green arm is actually what locks and unlocks the door. Now, to get this out of the car, there's only two screws holding this in. But on top of this, there's a guard. On top of that, there's a window guide. On top of that, there's various wires you have to unhook and unplug and unclip, unsnap, and get out the way. And then there's this big window in the sheet metal where you can reach in and you can work. You can almost stick your head in there and see it. But some of the angles were a little weird, so I was grabbing my camera phone, and I was using my camera phone to kind of spot look at and kind of get an idea of the orientation of screws and stuff. And it kind of does work really good. I mean, it's like poor man's mirror. Take it off your belt, play with your camera to figure out where you need to stick the screwdriver and then pop off the next screw. Also, I cannot recommend this enough. Definitely have a long screwdriver. And, of course, these little hook type guys that I've had forever. And mechanics, any mechanic worth his salt has got these little picks. Like, this guy is perfect for lifting up the rod, pulling the rod out a little bit, and then dropping it back into the door handle that you actually pull on the inside of the car door. This is insurmountably so much easier than reaching in with a pair of needle nose pliers, wrenching on it, pulling it, trying to make it this, that, and the other thing. And once you take one of these things apart and you put it back together, you'll know them for life. But if you have the proper tools and you have the proper parts, it makes your life so much easier. Now, to go back to the purchase price of this thing is $64. I just looked at the guy and I said, no, really? No, thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. And this is the dealership that Mrs. Dude and I bought 2 cars from, and we get most of our primary, oil changes and some light, mild service. Most of the time it's warranty campaign stuff. That's where we go and have the cars worked on. That's our go-to place. But the thing about it is this is a $64 part, not on eBay. And that's actually for the Honda part. And actually, let me get specific here. For my car, which is one of those things you kind of really need to do a little bit of research, okay? My car is the English build. My car was actually built in the UK. There's another CRV that looks exactly the same. It was built in Japan. So there's 2 destinations where these cars were built. The 2 actuators are not the same. So if you have a 2003 to 2006 Honda CRV and the actuator stops working, in other words, you keep hitting the key center, it's not unlocking the door, or you lock and unlock the driver's door, and that button isn't working, but all the other buttons are going up and down and doing what they need to do, this guy's going, it's basically flown the coop. Now, for my car, the part number is going to be as follows: 72155, S as in Sierra, 5, A as in Apple, A as in Apple, 01. Now, I'm not lying here. That's that's the actual part number. That's the actual part number. But the kicker is, I went on eBay, and of all things, another dealership, very like one of the big local chains, had a Honda dealership in Northern Virginia. They were selling it for $46, no shipping. And if you think about it, to get shipped from Virginia to me up in Baltimore, it's about a day. Okay, it's going by land. It's not even great, huge amount of rocket science involved there. They basically shipped from point A to point B. They ate the shipping. And I actually was curious about it because I wanted to verify the part number. So I called down there, and a very nice gentleman was like, the parts manager is like, yes, sir, this and the other thing. Obviously, absolutely Latino guy by the name of Juan. And so we're talking, and I'm like, okay, well, let me ask you a stupid question here. Why are you charging only $46 and my dealership's charging me $64? And we're all roughly on the same coast. We're only like one state line apart. I think we're maybe like 50 miles apart, but, as a crow flies. And the guy goes, very simply put, if they bone you for the price, are you going to go back? And I was like, probably not. He goes, I'm selling it for wholesale. I'm still making money on it. Even with the shipping, I'm still making some money on it. I have sold the part. I got it over the curb. I got it out the door, and you bought it. So, charitably, you're going to be happy that I gave you a good deal. You're going to come back. Good business sense. But, the other thing, too, is my dealership being local, they would not budge on the price. They said $64 and not even offer of, okay, would you, have you heard of it? I probably should have boned them, too. I probably should have said, well, I've seen a better price, a dealership, blah, blah, blah. And they would have said, well, that's nice. Why don't you go to dealership, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I'm here right now. Do you want to make the sale or not? And the dirty little secret is I know Honda parts, okay? I've worked in a number of Honda dealerships. I've owned Hondas ever since, time immemorial. It's probably like the third or fourth car I've actually owned has been a Honda, and I pretty much have stayed Honda up until the current with only a few distractions of, like, a Toyota and multiply, tow trucks of, like, Ford vintage and what have you. But most of the time, every car I've had personally has been a Honda. I know Hondas inside and out. That's why I wasn't too charitably kirking out when it came to the point of, taking apart the driver's door, changing out the lock mechanism, putting it back in to make the thing work with the electric key lock. It still worked with the manual. It's just the only downside is that every time I walked up to my car, I had to throw a key into it, turn the lock, blah, blah, blah. But my key actually has the key center on board where you basically hit the button. Every other lock on the car would work, with the exception of the door locks, because the door locks didn't know to lock and unlock because the master door lock wasn't working first. So if you have a situation where your Japanese vehicle is not locking or unlocking, and the key center is good, because you can go up to like the auto parts places, walk up to the little thing, and basically you key the button, and you'll see the little light on the display light up telling you that it is transmitting. It's probably going to be something simple, stupid, and the first thing that goes, the weak link in the chain, is almost always the lock actuator. Now, to get to this thing, normally what you have to do is you have to take off the inside door handle, pop that off. Plug on, unplug every other switch. Usually, on my car at least, the speaker stays with the car door. You don't need to remove the speaker. So you basically pop off a bunch of clips and what have you. And the other thing, too, is you need to have another tool. Very carefully, you can do it also with a screwdriver, but there's a bunch of little push pin clips that clip the side of the door panel inside the car door. So literally when you're pulling it out, it's going dunk, 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 and there's like 6 or 7 little snap guys that unsnap. You got to be really careful. And what I would recommend most definitely is see if your vehicle has a proper age range where you have a tutorial. And that's all I did is I went on YouTube and I saw some other guy that did it first. So I knew pretty much there's a screw here, there's a screw here, there's a little push pin here, a little plastic guy here. Don't break this, don't take that off, this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 blah. It all coming down. The guy that did it on the video took out a couple steps, and I pretty much figured, the 3 or 4 steps that need to be done. Definitely get some good information. If nothing else, go to a shop. Ask the guy if you can see the shop manual for your particular vintage, and see if you can at least get some photocopies. If the guy's cool, he'll be sure, man. A service manual for your car is like $50. It's a good investment. I usually have a service manual for pretty much every car I've ever owned. It's a really good investment. If you find a used one, you can find it quite a lot cheaper on eBay. You find a new one, you're then unhappy because you're putting dirty fingerprints in a new book. But case in point, it's not rocket science. You guys can do this for yourself. Why spend $300 or $400 for these guys to take your car door apart when you're getting a $40 part and spending about an hour or so of your time versus a dealership boning you hard? Don't do that. So like I usually say, folks, if you can spend a couple bucks and basically make it on your own, make it work, because it's not rocket science. Couple little minor tools, you can make it on your own. Probably, not even having like this little hook guy, you can probably take a piece of coat hanger, bend a piece of coat hanger, and make it do exactly the same thing as this, just won't be quite as pretty. Not rocket science. Alright, folks, we'll break off on this one. Eat good, keep it a 10 ring, and as always, don't let a dealership bone you for a couple dollars. That's just not cool. Alright, folks, we'll break off on this one. See you guys.